Future-Proof is sponsored by Concordia Dental Healthcare, expert care you can trust.
Hello and thank you for joining me, Sarah Hopwood, as I film or continue to film this series on future proofing, where we look to business, to employees and indeed education to, I think, just help inspire a sense of confidence about the future, maybe challenge some thinking, maybe open up some creative thinking as business owners, employees and indeed students think ahead to the future, what it will look like and how they can actually strengthen, if you like, their sense of confidence, feeling and indeed their position as we enter this completely new unknown phase, if you like, in our revolutionary history. And I believe it's all about the heart, which is why emotional intelligence is so important. We've got artificial intelligence coming into our world, and for us as human beings, how on earth can we position ourselves in that world? And I think the more effective we are as human beings, the nicer, the kinder and indeed altruistic to a serving heart as a business, then that will help us future-proof as we go into this uncertain world. I'm delighted to say that I have Tim Sorensen in the studio with me today. I've known Tim for many, many years. I do have written down who he is and what he is, but as I've been talking for a minute or so, I'd like to go straight in now. And Tim, welcome to the studio.
Sarah, lovely to meet you again.
Thank you so much for joining me. So first of all, Tim, and I do have it written down here, Programme Manager for, could you say, I want you to say who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. My name's Tim Sorensen. I look after the Education Business Partnership in Eastbourne. I've been involved in that project for nearly 30 years now, and our focus is very much on bringing businesses and young people together, sharing an awareness of the opportunities within the workplace, looking at issues around employability, skills, and I think in these days more and more looking at resilience and how to react, how to respond, and how to take advantage of opportunities which sometimes perhaps appear a bit elusive if you're 14 or 15 or even younger. We actually work with children from the age of 5 or 6 just to introduce them to that so-called world of work and the community around them, but they get such a buzz from that, and if we can somehow capture that and keep that enthusiasm, that interest going throughout their education into further education, perhaps university or apprenticeships, then I think that's good for them, I think it's good for communities, and I dare I say it's good for business at the end of the day.
I think without a doubt, and some of you may know I'm a former teacher and I know that world. I worked from nursery to the junior section, then taught privately older than that, and the key issue in which you've touched on now is the importance of a love for learning. Gone are the days of this is my career for life. And can I ask you, and we've not prepared some of this is great, we've known each other for a long, long time. Why do you do what you do? Because I've known you for 20 years, you've always been involved with education. Why?
Well, my background actually is not education at all. I've come into this, as quite a few people have, as a volunteer within the business community, more than 30 years ago, and through a variety of circumstances I've worked in it ever since. But my background, in fact, is more into in engineering and IT. I've experienced redundancies from some fairly, what I thought was secure areas, so that nature of resilience, picking yourself up, getting on, facing new challenges has been something I've experienced throughout my working life, and I'm the other side of 60 now. So for young people who are seeing an even faster pace of change in terms of technology, jobs coming and going, I think it's even more important that we present them with an opportunity, an honest opportunity of what they have before them and what in fact they can make of it for themselves. My father, for example, was of a generation that had literally a job for life, commuted to London for 30, 40 years. I did a bit of that for 3 or 4 years. But I think young people today are not going to be seeing that sort of experience, and therefore they need to understand their capabilities, to be supported in developing new capabilities, and then using that to take whatever advantages and opportunities come along.
You've talked about resilience, and resilience is a buzzword. It's been around and it's just being elevated more and more. And I remember actually the husband of a teacher where I was teaching told me he'd had 2 or 3 redundancies, and he said it was the making of him. Would you say that's the same for you?
I think so. I mean, as I said, I've actually had 3 redundancies as well, all from quite different sectors. It's not if I stayed in the same industry. And I think it's certainly given me a degree of resilience, because it's very easy to get very depressed and think, well, that's the end, and obviously the older you get, that feeling becomes even worse. But what it actually has done for me, it has enabled me to look wider, to look at different opportunities. I'm bound to say that networking is very much an underpinning aspect of how I've worked. So it's always meant that as perhaps one door has appeared to be closing, I've already been leaning on another one somewhere else. And I think that's again something we young people need to be aware of, is that there's a lot of things out there, but you've got to make the effort, you've got to lean on the door, and you've got to actually have the courage to then walk through those doors.
I love this. It's about motion, standing and waiting for the ideal opportunity. It will never happen. There is a key thing about motion. Leaning on a door is really, really important, and there's, I think, a very fine line, because if you're not totally committed to something, then you won't get the total result that you
Absolutely.
want. But equally, if you put all your eggs in one basket over a long period of time and nothing's happening, there must be some question marks in there saying, is this right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's very easy. I think just keep doing, keep pursuing, but actually that door is not a door, it's a brick wall.
Yeah.
And I think it takes courage, though, to realise that at that point you have got to stop. And I think coming back to young people, they have a tremendous enthusiasm and appetite for learning.
Absolutely.
And we see this through some of the events that we organise through the Education Business Partnership, like a very recent Junior Enterprise event. This is an event for 8-9-year-olds who are undertaking a real problem, marketing problem linked to Eastbourne, where they have to undertake a number of challenges and then present that work to a panel at the end of the day. It's intimidating for adults to be sitting behind a microphone.
Yeah, they've done PowerPoint presentations.
Putting 8-9-year-olds in that situation is in fact fantastic, and of course they're full of that enthusiasm, sense of pride for what they've done. But the trick is to keep that flow, that enthusiasm going.
See, I think of, for me, and it may be controversial to say this, I think we should come from a position of assuming all young adults are enthusiastic when they're born. Life is good, and they get generally, if they cry, they get what they want. And I think we have to take responsibilities as teachers, as parents, as a voice of authority over a youth, that, we could dampen that enthusiasm. We are the ones, and if you think, is it Ken Robinson who talks about, and there's a poem that he quotes on, and he actually reflects on a poem that a guy wrote for his wife, actually, because his wife thought she didn't love him. There was something like that anyway. And in the poem he was quoting, he said, but please walk very, very carefully, because where you are walking on my dreams. And I have a vision when I had a careers talk, and a silver salver was my dream. I want to be a nurse. And the guy physically shut my file, leant back, and he said, you haven't a hope.
No, I know, and I think this is the problem. A lot of young people sort of hear this got no conditioning right from the start. One of the things that we're very proactive on in the Education Business Partnership, dare I say, is promoting opportunities for girls.
Yes. Having
a daughter myself, I don't want her to feel that she can't do stuff because she's a girl. She's very capable, as many girls are. But we see huge problems, for example, in science and technology areas, where girls may be very enthusiastic about science and projects at school, go into secondary, further higher education. Suddenly we see the numbers involved tailing off quite considerably.
They do. My daughter did physics and they really tailed off. Tim, we're going to be going into the break now, but do stay with me for the second half as we continue this conversation. And I just think kind of my last thought there is we can't help how we feel about things, and people can try and make us feel, for example, a redundancy can make us feel rejected, that we're no good, but what we can control is our perspective. And if we can have a perspective of going, do you know what, I'm going to turn this into an opportunity, I'm going to make this good for me, I'm going to stay in control.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So stay with us as we continue this discussion around resilience. Thank you. EQ, emotional quotient, is better known as emotional intelligence. It is a tangible tool that can sit alongside your services or your product, and it can be taught. Leaders with high EQ have less stress, they're more effective, and they earn more money. There's a great saying, just because we have pains, it does not give us permission to be a pain. I believe that teaching emotional intelligence has a direct impact on your sense of success and your net profits. EQ will empower you and your workforce to drive the change that you want. Change brings transition. EQ can help unpack what's holding you back and speed up that period of transition.